My stepmother used my address for her massive tax fraud scheme. Now she's facing federal investigation. Posted by you/firefighter fed up. I've been lurking on this subreddit for years, reading stories and thinking my family drama was just normal dysfunction. After the events of the past 2 months, I now realize I was the frog in the slowly boiling pot. This is long, but I need to get it all out, and I genuinely need advice on how to handle what's coming next. For context, I'm a 30-year-old firefighter. I've worked my way up over 8 years, saved diligently, and this past November, I finally achieved something I dreamed about since I was a kid sleeping on a pull-out couch in my mom's one-bedroom apartment. I bought my own place. A modest 2-bedroom condo in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it's mine. The ink on the closing documents was barely dry on November 8th when everything started. My family situation is complicated, as I'm sure many of yours are. My biological parents divorced when I was 4. Dad remarried Linda when I was 12. Linda came with her own son, Derek, who was 7 at the time. 4 years, I tried to make it work. I tried to be a good stepbrother, a good stepson. But Linda never let me forget I was an outsider in what she considered her family. The favoritism toward Derek was constant and crushing. Dad, conflict avoidant to his core, always chose peace with Linda over standing up for me. I moved out at 18, put myself through the fire academy, and built my life with minimal family involvement. We do holidays, awkward, tense holidays, but that's about it. Dad and I grab lunch occasionally, always without Linda, and those are the only moments I feel like I have a father. When I bought my condo, I made the mistake of sharing my excitement at our early November family dinner. I showed photos, mentioned the address when Dad asked about the neighborhood, and talked about my plans for the space. Linda listened with that tight smile she reserves for moments when she's filing away information for later use. I should have recognized that look. I've seen it enough times. The first signs, November 15th to 30th. The packages started arriving about a week after I moved in. At first, it was just 1 or 2, and I assumed they were housewarming gifts from my mom's side of the family or perhaps something I'd ordered and forgotten about during the chaos of moving. But the names on the packages weren't mine. Linda Martinez. Derek Martinez. L. Martinez. D. Martinez. I texted Dad, "Hey, some packages arrived at my place with Linda's name on them. Did she order something to my address by mistake?" His response, "Oh, Linda mentioned she was having some trouble with deliveries at our place. Porch pirates. She probably just used yours since you're home more with your shift schedule. Just hold on to them, Derek will swing by." This should have been my first red flag. I work 24-hour shifts. I'm often gone. But I was still in new homeowner bliss, so I didn't push back. I stacked the boxes in my spare room. Derek came by 2 days later. He didn't knock, just walked in. I'd given Dad a spare key for emergencies, and apparently that had been copied and distributed. "Yo, I'm here for the packages," he announced, already heading for the spare room like he'd been here before. "Derek, you can't just walk into my home." He shrugged. "Dad gave me a key. It's not a big deal. These are just Mom's Christmas presents. She doesn't want Dad seeing them." He loaded up about 8 boxes and left without another word. I stood in my own doorway, feeling like I'd been somehow displaced in my own home. Over the next week, the trickle became a flood. By November 25th, I was receiving between 15 and 20 packages daily. My doorstep, my entryway, my spare room, all overflowing with boxes bearing Linda's various name permutations. Clothing retailers, electronic stores, jewelry companies, luxury goods suppliers. Based on the packaging, we weren't talking about modest holiday shopping. These were high-end items. I called Dad directly. "This has to stop. I'm getting dozens of packages a day. My neighbors are starting to notice. There's no way this is just Christmas gifts." Dad sighed. "Son, it's just temporary. Black Friday sales. You know how Linda gets about deals. It'll calm down after Cyber Monday." It did not calm down. Black Friday through December 10th, the avalanche. The Black Friday weekend was overwhelming. I counted 43 packages between Friday and Sunday. I had to start stacking them in my living room because the spare room was full. My mail carrier started giving me looks, not unfriendly, but definitely curious. Derek came by every single day, sometimes twice. He'd let himself in, load up his car, and leave. No greeting, no thanks, no acknowledgement that this was absolutely insane. The one time I tried to talk to him about it, he just said, "Mom said you'd be cool with it. You owe her anyway for all those years she fed you." I did the math. Linda and Dad got married when I was 12. I moved out at 18. 6 years during which I ate food in their house. Food that was mostly bought with my father's income, by the way. And apparently, that meant I now owed Linda indefinite use of my address for whatever this was. By December 10th, I'd logged over 200 packages. I started photographing each delivery, documenting the sender, the recipient name used, and the date. Something in my gut told me I needed a record. Firefighters are trained to trust our instincts about danger, and every instinct I had was screaming that this situation was dangerous. Then the IRS letters started. December 12th, the government comes knocking. The first envelope was thin and official, addressed to Linda Martinez at my address. I didn't open it, I'm not insane, but I held it up to the light. Those 3 letters were unmistakable, IRS. 2 more arrived over the next week. Then a letter from my state's Department of Revenue. Then something from a collections agency, also addressed to Linda. I called my dad immediately. There's IRS mail coming to my address for Linda. What is going on? It's nothing, Dad said, but his voice had that particular strain that told me it was definitely something. Linda's dealing with some business stuff. Just forward them to our address. Dad, this is federal mail. This isn't porch pirates. Why is the IRS writing to Linda at my address? Marcus, please. Just let it go. It's a family matter. That phrase, family matter, has been used my entire life to silence my questions, dismiss my concerns, and demand my compliance. But I wasn't a child anymore. I was a homeowner, a taxpayer, and I was starting to understand what was happening. I spent that evening researching. What I found made my stomach turn. There are people who use alternate addresses to receive goods purchased through fraudulent means, stolen credit cards, identity theft, reshipping scams. But there's another scheme, one that's particularly common in states with high sales taxes. Using out-of-state addresses or addresses in different tax jurisdictions to avoid paying sales tax on purchases, then having the items shipped to an alternate location for pickup. My state has a 6.25% sales tax. If Linda had spent, conservatively, $50,000 on goods, based on the volume and apparent quality of what I'd seen coming through, she'd avoided over $3,000 in taxes. But I suspected the number was much higher. Some of those packages were large. Some came from luxury retailers. If she'd spent $100,000 or more. I photographed the IRS letters, added them to my documentation, and started planning my next move. December 15th to 23rd, gathering evidence. I'm a methodical person. You have to be in my line of work. When you're entering a burning building, panic kills. You assess, you plan, you execute. So that's what I did. I requested delivery records from my building's front desk for all packages received since November 8th. The concierge, Maria, had been signing for many of them. She gave me a printout, 247 packages over 6 weeks. She also mentioned, hesitantly, that she'd been asked not to discuss the deliveries with me. Asked by whom? I said, your stepbrother. He said it was a surprise for you. I explained, as calmly as I could, that it was not a surprise for me, that I had not authorized anyone to receive packages in my building on my behalf, and that I would appreciate her documenting any future interactions with Derek or Linda regarding deliveries. Maria's expression shifted from uncomfortable to concerned. Mr. Thompson, some of these packages, they're insured for significant amounts. One of them was signed for at over $5,000 value. I assumed you knew. I did not know. Next, I consulted with a lawyer. A buddy from the firehouse recommended his sister, Amanda Chen, who specialized in tax and fraud law. I brought my documentation, the photographs, the delivery logs, the IRS letters I'd carefully not opened. This is textbook tax evasion, Amanda said after reviewing everything. Using your address to receive goods and avoid sales tax, potentially making fraudulent claims about her residence for tax purposes. If she's filed any documents claiming to live at your address, that's fraud. And if these packages are connected to any kind of reselling operation, which the volume suggests, there might be income tax evasion involved too. What should I do? First, stop accepting deliveries. Return to sender everything. Second, document that you're doing this. Send a certified letter to your stepmother explicitly stating that you do not authorize the use of your address and that all future deliveries will be refused. Third, consider reporting what you know to the IRS. There's a whistleblower program. You might even receive a percentage of any recovered funds. I wasn't interested in the money. I was interested in not being implicated in Linda's scheme. I sent the certified letter on December 18th. I also changed my locks, all of them, and informed my building's front desk that Derek Martinez was not authorized to enter the building or receive any packages on my behalf. December 24th, The explosion. Christmas Eve at Dad and Linda's house has always been an obligation, not a joy. But this year, I arrived with a sense of purpose. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was simply going to make my position clear, in front of witnesses, so there could be no future disputes about what was said. The evening started with the usual tension. Linda gave me a perfunctory hug, her smile tight. Derek smirked at me from the couch, playing some game on his phone. Dad looked tired. He always looks tired these days, worn down by decades of managing Linda's moods. Dinner was fine. Small talk about work, the weather, some distant cousin's wedding. But I could feel Linda watching me, waiting for something. When we moved to the living room for coffee, she struck. "Marcus, Derek mentioned you changed the locks at your condo. That's a bit paranoid, don't you think?" I set down my coffee cup. I changed the locks because my home security was compromised. I had unauthorized people entering my residence. Derek looked up from his phone. "I had a key, dude. It wasn't unauthorized. You had a key that was supposed to be for emergencies. Using it to let yourself in without my knowledge or permission isn't an emergency. It's trespassing." Linda's eyes narrowed. "We were just picking up packages. Christmas gifts. I was trying to avoid spoiling the surprises. Linda, I received over 250 packages at my address in 6 weeks. That's not Christmas gifts. That's a shipping operation. And the IRS letters that started arriving suggest it's also something significantly more serious." The room went silent. Dad's face went pale. Derek's smirk vanished. Linda's expression cycled through several emotions: surprise, anger, calculation, before settling on something I can only describe as cold fury. "I don't know what you're implying," she said slowly, "but whatever it is, you should be careful. I'm your family. You don't want to make accusations you can't take back." "I'm not making accusations. I'm stating facts. I received packages addressed to you at my address without my authorization. I received federal mail addressed to you at my address. I have now formally notified you, in writing and in person, that you are not authorized to use my address for any purpose. I have also informed relevant authorities of the situation and provided documentation of what I've observed." Derek stood up. "You did what? You knocked on my mom." "I protected myself from being implicated in whatever this is. If everything is legitimate, an investigation will show that. If it's not..." I shrugged. "That's not my problem." What happened next was chaotic. Derek started shouting. Linda started crying, those manipulative tears she deploys whenever she's losing control of a situation. Dad tried to calm everyone down, looking at me with a mixture of disappointment and something else I couldn't read. Maybe fear. I left before it escalated further. As I was putting on my coat, Dad followed me to the door. "Marcus, why didn't you come to me first? I could have handled this quietly." "I did come to you, Dad. Multiple times. You told me to let it go. You said it was a family matter. I decided it was a legal matter instead. I haven't spoken to any of them since." Update 1, January 3rd. The investigation begins. I hoped the new year would bring some clarity, and in a way, it has, just not the kind anyone was expecting. 2 days ago, I received a call from an investigator with my state's Department of Revenue. A woman named Patricia Holloway, professional and thorough, wanted to ask me some questions about my address and its connection to Linda Martinez. The interview lasted about an hour. I provided everything: my documentation, the delivery records from my building, copies of the certified letter I'd sent to Linda, and a timeline of events. Patricia was particularly interested in the volume of packages and the pattern of deliveries. "This is consistent with a sales tax avoidance scheme we've been seeing," she explained. "Individuals will use addresses in lower tax jurisdictions, have goods shipped there, then transport them to their actual residence. Sometimes it's connected to resale operations. The IRS correspondence you mentioned suggests there might also be income reporting issues." She asked if I'd be willing to testify if the case went to court. I said yes. Later that day, I got a call from Amanda, my lawyer. She'd heard through professional channels that Linda's case had been flagged for potential federal review. Apparently, the pattern of activity suggested this wasn't her first time running this kind of scheme, just the first time she'd gotten caught. I called my mom that night. She's been my rock through all of this, even though she has every reason to despise anything connected to my dad's life with Linda. Her response was perfect. "Marcus, you did the right thing. Protecting yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival." I needed to hear that. Update 2, January 8th. The family fallout. The extended family has chosen sides, and most of them haven't chosen me. I've received a flurry of messages from various relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, all some variation of the same theme. How could you do this to Linda? She's family. You're destroying your father's marriage. The most painful was from my grandmother, Dad's mother. She called me ungrateful and vindictive. She said I'd always been jealous of Derek and that this was my way of getting revenge for perceived slights from childhood. I didn't argue with her. What would be the point? These are people who've watched Linda manipulate and control my father for 18 years. They've seen her favoritism, her pettiness, her constant need to diminish me. And they've said nothing. Why would they start seeing clearly now? But there have been some surprises. My cousin Rachel, who I've never been particularly close to, sent me a private message. I know everyone's piling on you, but I want you to know I think you did the right thing. Linda's been running schemes like this for years. She convinced my mom to let her use our address a few years ago, and we ended up getting audited. My parents were too embarrassed to tell anyone. You're not the first person she's done this to. You're just the first one who fought back. Rachel's message changed something for me. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was potentially protecting future victims. Derek, meanwhile, has been texting me increasingly unhinged messages. Threats to make me pay, promises that I'll regret this, claims that the investigation will prove Mom did nothing wrong and then you'll look like the idiot you are. I've saved every message. My lawyer advised me to seek a restraining order if the threats continue. Update 3, January 15th. The scope expands. I met with Patricia Holloway again last week, this time at her office. The investigation has expanded significantly. What started as a state-level inquiry into sales tax avoidance has become a joint investigation with the IRS and possibly the FBI. Your stepmother has been running variations of this scheme for at least 7 years, Patricia told me. Multiple addresses, multiple states. We've identified at least 4 other victims, people whose addresses she used without authorization, some of whom faced legal consequences because of her actions. 7 years. 4 other victims. And I was almost the 5th. Patricia also shared something that hit me harder than I expected. Your father's name appears on some of the documentation. It's possible he'll be considered a co-conspirator. My father. My conflict-avoidant, peace-at-any-price father, who chose Linda over me time and time again, might be going down with her. I don't know how to feel about that. Part of me thinks he deserves whatever consequences come his way. He enabled Linda. He dismissed my concerns. He let her use me and my home without a second thought. But another part of me, the part that still remembers him teaching me to ride a bike, the part that treasured those rare lunches where we actually connected, that part hopes he can prove he didn't know. The evidence will show what it shows. I've stopped trying to predict or control the outcome. Update 4, January 22nd. Dad reaches out. My father called me for the first time since Christmas. It was late, nearly midnight, and I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Marcus. His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. I need to talk to you. I'm listening. There was a long pause. I'm sorry. For all of it. I should have protected you. I should have stopped this before it started. I was a coward. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I didn't know the extent of it, he continued. I knew Linda was creative with finances. But I didn't know about the other addresses, the other people. I swear I didn't know. Dad, you knew she was using my address. You told me it was fine. You had Derek using a key to my home like it was a storage unit. I know. I thought it was just the packages. I didn't realize. He trailed off, and I heard him take a shaky breath. They're saying I could face charges. Conspiracy, tax fraud. My lawyer says I might be able to avoid prison if I cooperate, but my career is over. My retirement is gone. Everything I built. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered every dismissal, every let it go, every time he chose Linda's comfort over my well-being. I'm sorry you're going through this, Dad. But I didn't create this situation. Linda did. And you enabled her. I had to protect myself. I know, he said again. I just wanted you to know. I'm proud of you. For standing up. I should have done the same thing years ago. We talked for another hour. It wasn't a reconciliation. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something, a crack in the wall, maybe, that might someday become a door. Update 5, January 28th. Justice and reflection. The formal charges came down yesterday. Linda has been charged with tax evasion, fraud, and identity theft, Apparently some of those credit cards weren't entirely legitimate either. Derek has been charged as an accessory. My father, as predicted, has been offered a deal in exchange for testimony against Linda. He took it. I found out through my lawyer, not from Dad himself. I understand why he didn't call. Turning on his wife of 18 years, even to save himself, must feel like the ultimate betrayal to him. The irony isn't lost on me. Linda's out on bail, but her passport has been surrendered. The house is likely going to be seized as part of the investigation into their finances. Derek has moved in with his biological father, who he hasn't spoken to in years. The family I felt like an outsider in my entire life is collapsing in on itself, and I'm watching from a distance, feeling not much of anything, really. I thought this would feel more satisfying. When I first started documenting the packages, some part of me imagined a cathartic moment of vindication. Finally, everyone would see Linda for who she really is. Finally, I would be believed. But it doesn't feel like vindication. It feels like exhaustion. Like finally putting down a weight I've been carrying so long I forgot what it felt like to not carry it. My therapist, who I started seeing in early January, says this is normal. You expected closure, she said. But there's no such thing as clean closure with family. There's just moving forward. So that's what I'm doing. I'm moving forward. My condo is quiet now. No more packages, no more Derek letting himself in, no more pretending that my home is just another resource for Linda to exploit. I've changed the locks again, not out of paranoia, but as a symbolic gesture. This is my space. Mine. I've also started reconnecting with people I pushed away over the years. Friends from the academy, co-workers I kept at arm's length because I was too exhausted from managing family drama to invest in real relationships. It turns out when you stop pouring energy into people who drain you, you have a lot left over for people who actually care. Final thoughts. To anyone reading this who's dealing with a similar situation, a family member using your address without permission, suspicious financial activity, pressure to stay quiet for the family, please learn from my experience. Document everything. Photographs, dates, delivery records. Information is protection. Consult a lawyer early. I waited longer than I should have because I kept hoping it would resolve itself. It never does. Set boundaries, in writing. That certified letter was crucial to establishing that I hadn't consented to any of this. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. You don't have to be able to articulate exactly why. Your subconscious is picking up patterns your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. Protect yourself first. I spent years being told that family loyalty meant sacrificing my own well-being. That's not loyalty. That's exploitation. I don't know what's going to happen next. Linda's trial is scheduled for April. My father's testimony will likely be devastating for her and for whatever relationship they have left. Derek has made it clear he considers me dead to him. The extended family has largely written me off as a traitor. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm not defined by their opinions of me. I'm defined by my actions, my integrity, and the life I'm building for myself. I bought this condo with money I earned. I've built a career I'm proud of. I have friends, real friends, who don't see me as a resource to be exploited. I have, for the first time in my life, boundaries. And that's worth more than any family's approval. TLDR, bought a condo in November, stepmother used my address for 250+ packages in a tax evasion scheme, IRS letters started arriving, confronted family at Christmas, reported everything to authorities, federal investigation opened, stepmother and stepbrother now facing charges, father cooperating with prosecution, and I'm finally free of their manipulation. Thanks for reading, everyone. Your stories on this subreddit helped me recognize what was happening and gave me the courage to act. I hope mine helps someone else do the same. Edit. Thank you for all the awards and supportive comments. I can't respond to everyone, but please know I'm reading them all. For those asking, yes, I'm still documenting everything. Yes, I'm still seeing my therapist. And yes, the condo is really nice when it's not filled with fraudulent packages.